Above the small human colony world of Meridian Station, 3 alien fleets floated in orbit like slow, patient predators. Their ships were massive, their weapons were old, but strong, and their commanders were certain of one thing: today would be an easy day. The lead ship belonged to the Threxian Dominion, a proud and ancient empire that had conquered dozens of worlds before humans even left their solar system. Their commander, a tall alien named Vorak Thes, stood on the bridge with his arms crossed. His skin was pale gray and his eyes were sharp and cold like a hunter who had never lost. "They sent no fleet," Vorak said, almost laughing. "No warships, no escorts. Just one small station and a handful of colonists. This will not even take an hour." Beside him stood his second-in-command, a shorter alien named Prenna. She looked nervous, but she tried to hide it. "Commander," she said carefully, "our scans show something strange. There is a single ship approaching from the direction of Earth. Just one." Vorak turned his head slowly. "One ship? Against 3 fleets?" "Yes, Commander." He laughed, a low and confident sound. "Humans truly are new to this galaxy. They don't understand power. They don't understand fear. One ship. How amusing." Around the bridge, other officers chuckled too. They had heard stories about humans, a young species, barely a few centuries into space travel, with technology far behind the older empires. Everyone knew Earth had only recently joined the wider galactic community. Everyone knew humans were weak, unprepared, and easy to push around. That is exactly why the Threxian Dominion, along with 2 allied species, the Kethrai and the Asuan, had come to Meridian Station. They wanted the colony's resources. They wanted its position near a valuable trade route, and they believed, without any doubt, that humans would simply agree to hand it over. "Send the message," Vorak ordered. "Tell them we are ready to negotiate the terms of their surrender." Prenna typed quickly. A moment later, a small screen flickered to life, showing a calm-looking human woman in a plain gray uniform. Her name, according to the translation system, was Colonel Reyes. "This is Meridian Station," she said. Her voice was steady, not scared, not angry, just calm. "We are aware of your fleets in orbit." Vorak leaned forward. "Then you understand your position. Surrender the station, and no one needs to be harmed." Colonel Reyes tilted her head slightly. "We're not here to negotiate a surrender, Commander." "Then what exactly are you here for?" Vorak asked, amused. "We're not here at all," she said. "But someone else is on their way." The screen went dark. Vorak frowned. He looked at Prenna. "What does that mean?" Prenna's console beeped sharply. She looked down and her face changed. All the confidence drained from her expression. "Commander, the ship, the one we detected earlier, it just entered the system." "Show me," Vorak said. The main screen shifted, showing a starfield. At first there was nothing unusual, just empty space and distant stars. Then, a single point of light appeared, growing slowly larger. It was a ship, but it did not look like any human ship the aliens had ever recorded before. It was long, dark, and sharp, like a blade cutting through the black of space. No decorations, no flags, no unnecessary lights, just cold, quiet power. "Identify it," Vorak ordered. The ship's computer searched through its databases. It took only a few seconds, but for Vorak, those seconds felt much longer. Finally, a name appeared on the screen. UES Dawnbreaker. Beneath the name, more information loaded. Class, unknown. Threat level, extreme. Cross-reference, confirmed. Prenna's hands froze over her controls. Around the bridge, several officers went quiet. "What is it?" Vorak asked, his voice losing some of its earlier confidence. "Why does everyone look like they've seen a ghost?" An older officer near the back of the bridge, a Threxian veteran named Doln, spoke up. His voice was low and serious. "Commander, I served during the Kethrai-human conflict 12 years ago. I saw records of that ship's class. Only 3 of them exist. and they were never meant to talk. Meant to talk about what? Vorak snapped. Daln swallowed hard. Meant to talk about anything. That ship isn't a negotiator, Commander. It's an answer. Vorak turned back to the screen, watching the dark shape grow closer. His confidence was shaking now, though he tried not to show it. One ship, he muttered to himself. It's still just one ship. But deep inside, a small part of him already knew. Numbers didn't always matter. Not when the one ship in question had a reputation that made veteran soldiers go pale. Far behind the alien fleets, aboard a nearby Kethrai warship, Commander Yis Orval watched the same information appear on his own screen. Unlike Vorak, Yis did not laugh. He did not smile. He simply stared, his four eyes narrowing as he read the ship's designation again and again. "Sir," said his communications officer, a younger Kethrai soldier, "should we prepare a response?" Yis did not answer right away. He remembered a story his father used to tell him, long before Yis ever joined the military. A story about a war between humans and a powerful alien empire, a war the humans were never supposed to win. "Sir?" the officer asked again. "Pull up historical records," Yis said quietly. "Search for Dawnbreaker class and Human Scarn War." The officer typed quickly. A moment later, the screen filled with old reports, blurry images, and damage assessments. Most of the files were locked or heavily censored, but a few pieces of information slipped through. Scarn Empire fleet strength, 400+ warships. Human Defense Fleet strength at the time, 12 ships. Result: Scarn Empire surrendered within 6 weeks. Cause: unknown. Records classified. The officer's mouth fell open. "Sir, this can't be right. 400 ships against 12? "It's right," Yis said grimly. "I remember when it happened. Every species in the galaxy heard about it, even if most of the details were hidden. The Scarn were one of the strongest empires in this region of space. They attacked Earth first, thinking humans were an easy target, just like we are thinking now. What happened to them?" Yis's eyes moved back to the approaching ship on the screen. No one knows exactly. The full story was never released. But the Scarn Empire doesn't exist anymore. Not as a military power. Not after that war. The young officer stared at the growing shape on the screen, his confidence completely gone now. "Sir, should we retreat?" Yis thought about it for a long moment. Retreating now, without even trying to fight, would be seen as weakness. His superiors back home would not accept a simple retreat as an excuse. But staying and facing whatever that ship truly was. "No," Yis finally said. "Not yet. We wait. We watch what the Threxians do first. If Vorak wants to prove his fleet's strength, let him be the one to test that ship." Meanwhile, aboard the Threxian flagship, Vorak was trying to regain control of the situation. "It's still just one ship," he said again, louder this time, as if saying it again would make it more true. "Our combined fleets have over 60 warships between us. One ship cannot possibly stand against 60. Daln, the veteran officer, shook his head slowly. "Commander, with respect, the numbers didn't matter for the Scarn either." Vorak's fists tightened. "The Scarn were fools. We are not. Prepare all weapon systems. If that ship comes any closer without permission, we will treat it as a hostile threat." "Commander," Prenna said carefully, "the ship isn't broadcasting any weapons signature. Its shields aren't even raised." Vorak blinked, confused. "What?" "It's approaching completely open," Prenna said. "No shields, no weapons active, nothing." The bridge fell silent again. This detail was somehow more unsettling than if the ship had come in blazing with weapons ready. A single warship, powerful enough to be feared across a dozen species, approaching an entire enemy fleet with no defenses raised at all. That wasn't the behavior of something afraid. That was the behavior of something that didn't need to be afraid. "Contact them," Vorak ordered, trying to keep his voice steady. "Now." A few seconds later, the communication channel opened. On the screen, a young human man appeared. He wore a simple dark uniform, No medals, no decorations. His expression was calm, almost bored, as if standing in front of 60 alien warships was nothing unusual. "This is Captain Ethan Voss of the UES Dawnbreaker," he said simply. Vorik straightened his posture, trying to project authority. "Captain Voss, you are approaching a restricted engagement zone controlled by 3 allied fleets. State your intentions immediately." Ethan tilted his head slightly, almost amused. "My intentions? Simple. I'm here to make sure this conversation ends the right way." "And what way is that?" "The way where nobody gets hurt," Ethan said. "Including you." Several officers on the Threxian bridge exchanged confused, nervous glances. This human did not sound like someone about to plead for peace. He sounded like someone giving them a chance. Vorik forced a small laugh, trying to sound confident. "You stand before 60 warships, Captain, alone, and you speak to me about protecting my safety?" "Ooh, yes," Ethan said simply. "That's exactly what I'm doing." The calmness in his voice was somehow more frightening than any threat could have been. Vorik's fingers tightened around the edge of his console. "You have made a serious mistake coming here," Vorik said, his voice sharper now. "Earth sends one ship and expects us to be frightened. This is not a negotiation. This is an insult." Ethan's expression did not change. "No one's asking you to be frightened, Commander. I'm just telling you what's coming." "And what exactly is coming?" Vorik snapped. For a moment, Ethan said nothing. He simply looked directly into the camera, his eyes calm but absolutely certain. "You already know the name of my ship," Ethan said quietly. "You already searched the records. You already know what happened to the last empire that ignored a Dawnbreaker-class vessel's warning." Vorik's jaw tightened. The bridge was completely silent now, every officer holding their breath. "That was a different war," Vorik said, though his voice had lost much of its earlier confidence. "It's always a different war," Ethan replied. "Until it isn't." The channel closed. For several long seconds, no one on the Threxian bridge spoke. Vorik stared at the blank screen, his mind racing. 60 ships, 1 ship. The math should have been simple, but something about that human captain's calmness, something about the ship's name, something about the way his own veteran officer had gone pale. None of it added up the way it should have. "Commander," Prena finally said, breaking the silence. "Orders?" Vorik hesitated. Every instinct told him this was still a bluff, that no single ship, no matter how legendary, could stand against 60 combined warships. But another part of him, a quieter and more careful part, remembered the story of the Skarn Empire. 400 ships, 12 human defenders, and within 6 weeks the Skarn were no longer a military power. He thought about his career, his reputation, the pressure from his superiors to prove Threxian strength in this new sector of space. He thought about backing down now, in front of his own crew, in front of his allies, and slowly, dangerously, his pride began to overpower his fear. "Bring all weapons online," Vorik ordered, his voice firm despite the doubt hiding underneath. "If that ship refuses to retreat within the next 2 minutes, we open fire." Prena hesitated. "Commander, are you certain?" "I said open fire," Vorik repeated sharply. "We are not the Skarn. We will not be frightened by legends and old war stories." Across the fleet, weapon systems began to hum to life. 60 warships, their cannons and missile bays glowing with growing energy, all aimed toward one single dark shape floating quietly in the black of space. Aboard the UES Dawnbreaker, Captain Ethan Voss watched the enemy fleet's weapons power up on his own display. He did not look worried. He simply exhaled softly and turned to his crew. "Well," he said calmly, "I gave them the chance." His weapons officer, a young woman named Lieutenant Kira Chen, looked up from her console. "Orders, Captain?" Ethan's eyes moved back to the screen, watching 60 ships preparing to fire on his single vessel. A small, tired smile crossed his face. Not the smile of fear, but the smile of someone who had seen this exact moment happen before, in different systems, against different enemies, and knew exactly how it would end. "Let's remind them," Ethan said quietly, "why nobody attacks Earth twice." The bridge lights dimmed slightly as the Dawnbreaker's true systems began to awaken. Systems that had remained hidden, quiet, and unused until this very moment. Back on the Threxian flagship, an alarm suddenly blared across the bridge. Prenna's eyes widened as she stared at her console in horror. "Commander," she shouted, "the Dawnbreaker. Its energy signature just changed. It's off the scale. Our sensors can't even measure it properly." Vorik stared at the screen, watching as the single dark ship began to glow faintly, like something ancient and powerful waking up after a long sleep. For the first time since arriving at Meridian Station, Vorik Thes felt something he had not felt in a very long time. Real fear. "Belay that order," he said suddenly, his voice cracking slightly. "Hold fire. Hold—" But it was too late. The countdown had already reached 0. The countdown reached 0. 60 warships fired at once. Bright beams of energy and streams of missiles rushed through the black of space, all aimed at one small dark ship floating quietly in the middle of the fleet. For 1 second, it looked like the UES Dawnbreaker would be destroyed instantly. 60 ships. Hundreds of weapons. No single vessel could survive that. Then something strange happened. A thin blue light appeared around the Dawnbreaker, like a bubble made of pure energy. The missiles hit the light and simply stopped, frozen in place for a moment before disappearing completely. The energy beams struck the same barrier and scattered harmlessly into space like water hitting glass. On the Threxian bridge, Prenna stared at her screen in disbelief. "Commander," the shield held. Not one bit of damage. Not one. Vorak's mouth was dry. "That's impossible. No shield can block that much firepower at once." "It's not just blocking it, Commander," Prenna said, her voice shaking. "Look at the readings. It's absorbing the energy. All of it." On the main screen, they watched as the blue light around the Dawnbreaker pulsed once, twice, and then slowly faded away, revealing the ship completely unharmed. Not a single scratch. Not a single mark. Daln, the older officer, stepped closer to Vorik. "Commander, I suggest we stop firing immediately." "We have 60 ships," Vorik shouted, more to convince himself than anyone else. "One ship cannot defeat 60 warships. Continue firing, all weapons, continuous fire." The fleet obeyed. Again and again, beams and missiles flew toward the Dawnbreaker. Again and again, the strange blue shield absorbed every attack without any damage. Aboard the Dawnbreaker, Captain Ethan Voss sat calmly in his chair, watching the enemy fleet's attacks fail one after another. Lieutenant Kira Chen glanced at him from her station. "Shields holding at 98%, Captain," she reported. "They're not even close to breaking through." Ethan nodded slowly. "Good. Let them keep trying a little longer. I want them to understand exactly what they're facing before we respond." "And if they don't stop?" Kira asked. "Then we'll make sure they remember why they should have," Ethan said quietly. For nearly a full minute, the alien fleet continued firing everything they had. 60 ships using their most powerful weapons, unable to leave even a mark on a single enemy vessel. Slowly, one by one, alarms began going off across different ships in the fleet, not because the Dawnbreaker was attacking them, but because their own weapon systems were overheating from constant use. "Commander," Prenna said, "several of our ships report weapon systems overheating. We need to pause fire to cool down or risk damaging our own vessels." Vorik's hands trembled slightly on the console. He had never faced a situation like this before. His entire military career, his reputation, his confidence, all of it was built on the idea that numbers and firepower always won. But here, in front of his own crew, that idea was falling apart. "Ceasefire," he finally said, his voice quiet now. "All ships, cease fire." The weapons stopped. Silence fell across the bridge, broken only by the soft beeping of overheated systems slowly cooling down. On the screen, the Dawnbreaker remained exactly where it had been the entire time, unmoved, untouched, waiting. A new transmission opened, and Captain Ethan Voss appeared on the screen once again. His expression was still calm, though now there was something colder in his eyes. "I gave you a chance to walk away," Ethan said. "You chose this instead." Vorik swallowed hard, trying to find his voice. "That shield. What is it? What technology allows a ship to absorb that much firepower?" "It's called the Aegis Core," Ethan said simply. "Every Dawnbreaker-class ship carries one. It doesn't just block attacks, Commander. It stores the energy from every shot fired at us." Vorik's eyes widened. "Stores it? For what purpose?" Ethan's expression darkened slightly. "You're about to find out." The transmission ended. Aboard the Kethrai warship nearby, Commander Yis Orval had watched the entire exchange in silence. His young communications officer looked at him nervously. "Sir, did you see that? They absorbed 60 ships' worth of firepower and didn't take a single hit." Yis nodded slowly, his 4 eyes narrowed in careful thought. "I told you, the numbers never mattered against these ships. This is exactly what happened during the Skarn War, according to the old reports. The Dawnbreaker-class ships don't just defend, they collect." "Collect what, sir?" Before Yis could answer, his sensor screen suddenly lit up with new readings. He leaned forward, watching closely. "Sir, the Dawnbreaker's energy levels are rising rapidly," his officer reported. It's using the stored energy from the attack. I think it's about to fire." Yis's expression tightened. "Order our ships to increase distance immediately. Now." The Kethrai fleet began pulling back, moving further away from the Threxian ships, putting as much space as possible between themselves and the coming danger. Yis watched carefully, remembering every detail from the old stories his father used to tell him. Stories about a weapon so powerful that entire fleets vanished in a single strike. Back on the Threxian flagship, alarms suddenly blared across the bridge. "Commander!" Prena shouted. "The Dawnbreaker is charging some kind of weapon. Energy levels are already higher than anything we recorded in our own systems." Vorek's face went pale. "Evasive maneuvers. All ships, scatter formation immediately." But it was already too late. The 60 warships, packed closely together in a defensive formation, had nowhere to go fast enough. On the Dawnbreaker's main screen, a bright light began building at the front of the ship, growing brighter and brighter with each passing second. Ethan watched the display calmly. "Charge complete, Captain," Kira reported, weapon ready to fire. "Target their primary formation," Ethan said. "Minimum yield. We're sending a message, not committing genocide." "Understood," Kira said, adjusting the targeting controls. "Firing in 3, 2, 1. A single thin beam of light shot out from the Dawnbreaker, moving faster than anything the Threxian sensors could properly track. It struck the space just in front of the main Threxian formation, not hitting any ship directly, but passing close enough that every vessel felt the shockwave of its power. The beam continued past the fleet and into open space, where it struck a small, uninhabited asteroid nearly 10,000 kilometers away. The asteroid, easily the size of a large city, simply disappeared in a flash of blinding light. On the Threxian bridge, everyone stared in stunned silence at the empty space where the asteroid had been just seconds before. That was a warning shot," Dulm said quietly, his voice trembling. "Commander, that single shot could have destroyed our entire formation if it had aimed directly at us." Vorek said nothing. He simply stared at the screen, his mind unable to process what he had just witnessed. 60 ships' worth of collected energy, released in a single beam capable of erasing a small moon-sized asteroid in an instant. The transmission opened again. Ethan's face appeared calm as ever. "That was your only warning," he said. "The next shot won't miss." Vorek's throat felt tight. He tried to speak, but no words came out at first. Finally, he managed a quiet, broken response. What do you want from us?" "I already told you," Ethan said. I'm not here to negotiate. I'm here to make sure this ends peacefully. Withdraw your fleets from Meridian Station immediately, and no one else needs to see what that weapon can really do. Vorak looked around his bridge. His officers were staring at him, waiting for his decision. His pride told him to keep fighting, to prove that Threxian strength could not be so easily broken by a single ship. But another part of him, the part that had just watched an asteroid disappear in an instant, knew there was no version of this fight that ended well for his fleet. Order the Kethrai and Asun fleets to withdraw as well, Ethan added. All 3 fleets leave this system immediately, or the next demonstration will not be aimed at an empty asteroid. For a long, heavy moment, Vorak said nothing. Then, finally, his shoulders sank in quiet defeat. Understood, he said softly. We will withdraw. The transmission ended. As the Threxian fleet began preparing to retreat, Commander Yiss watched everything unfold from his own ship, a small, knowing smile crossing his face. Order our fleet to withdraw as well, he said calmly to his officer. There's no reason to test that weapon a second time. Yes, sir, the young officer replied, still shaking slightly from what he had witnessed. Sir, how did you know? How did you know retreating was the right choice? Yiss looked back at the screen, watching the Dawnbreaker remain silently in position as the alien fleets slowly began pulling away. Because I remember the stories my father told me, Yiss said quietly. Stories about the Human Skarn War, about a fleet of 400 ships facing just 12 human defenders. Everyone always focused on the number 12. No one paid attention to what those 12 ships actually were. What were they, sir? Yiss's eyes lingered on the Dawnbreaker's dark shape. Dawnbreaker class. The young officer's face went pale as understanding finally settled in. As the alien fleet slowly retreated from Meridian Station, Colonel Reyes watched everything from the colony's small command center. She let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding, then turned to her communications officer. Open a channel to the Dawnbreaker, she said. A moment later, Ethan's calm face appeared on her screen. Colonel, he said simply, the fleets are withdrawing. Meridian Station is safe. Thank you, Captain, Reyes said. I'll admit, when Central Command told us they were sending a single ship, I wasn't sure what to expect. Ethan allowed himself a small, tired smile. Most people aren't, until they see what a Dawnbreaker-class ship can really do. Reyes studied his expression carefully. That warning shot? Could it really have destroyed their entire fleet? Ethan's smile faded slightly, replaced by something more serious. That shot used less than 5% of the energy collected from their attack. If I had wanted to end this fight completely, Colonel, there wouldn't have been a fleet left to retreat. Reyes felt a small chill run through her at those words. Then why hold back? Because Earth doesn't want more enemies, Ethan said quietly. We want peace. But peace only works when the other side truly understands the cost of choosing violence instead. Today, they understood. As the last of the alien ships disappeared into hyperspace, leaving Meridian Station finally safe and quiet, Ethan turned to his crew, his expression calm once again. Set a course back toward Earth, he said. Our work here is done. But even as he spoke those words, a quiet alert blinked on his own console. A message marked urgent, coming directly from Earth's high command. Kira noticed his expression change as he read it. Captain, is something wrong? Ethan's eyes narrowed slightly as he finished reading the message. It seems, he said slowly, our work isn't quite finished after all. On the screen behind him, a new star system appeared, marked with a bright red warning symbol, a system far larger, far more dangerous, and far more important than Meridian Station had ever been. There's another situation, Ethan said quietly, and this time, it's not just one fleet waiting for us. Kira's eyes widened as she read the details appearing on her own screen. Captain, I know exactly what it is, Ethan said, his voice hardening. Set a new course. We're not going home yet. The Dawnbreaker turned slowly in space, its engines glowing brighter as it prepared to leave Meridian Station behind, heading toward a threat far greater than anything the small colony had ever faced. The Dawnbreaker moved through hyperspace, cutting across the galaxy at a speed most species could only dream of. Inside the bridge, Captain Ethan Voss stood in front of the main screen, studying the new star system Earth's High Command had just sent him. The system was called Carveth Cluster. It wasn't marked on most public star maps. It wasn't part of any known trade route, and according to the file Ethan was reading, it wasn't supposed to exist at all. At least, not officially. "Captain," Kira said from her station, "I'm reading the full report now. This isn't good." "Tell me," Ethan said, his eyes still fixed on the screen. Kira took a breath before speaking. Earth's deep space scouts discovered a hidden alien base 3 days ago, buried inside an asteroid field in the Carveth cluster. At first, they thought it was just a small mining outpost, but further scans show something much bigger underneath the surface. How much bigger? According to the report, an entire fleet, hidden inside the asteroid, powered down to avoid detection. Scout estimates put the number at over 200 warships. Ethan's jaw tightened slightly. 200. That's more than 3 times the fleet we faced at Meridian Station. "There's more, Captain," Kira added quietly. "The fleet's technology signature doesn't match any known empire in this region. High Command believes it might belong to a group called the Voth Collective, a species that hasn't been seen in almost 50 years. Ethan turned sharply. "The Voth Collective? I thought they were wiped out during the Great Collapse." "That's what everyone believed," Kira said. "But if this fleet is real and if it truly belongs to them, then they didn't disappear. They've been hiding, building, waiting." The bridge fell into a heavy silence. Ethan looked back at the star map, his mind racing through the possibilities. A hidden fleet of 200 ships, built by a species everyone thought was extinct, waiting quietly for the right moment to strike. Waiting for what? Ethan muttered to himself. As if answering his question, a new alert appeared on the screen. Kira's eyes widened as she read it. "Captain, High Command just intercepted a transmission from inside the Carveth cluster. It's old, nearly 2 days delayed, but it's addressed directly to Voth command structures across multiple systems." "Play it," Ethan ordered. The message crackled through the speakers, translated automatically into simple, clear words. "The humans grow stronger with each passing year. Their new warships cannot be ignored any longer. We move against their western colonies within the week. Prepare all fleets for the Carveth offensive." The message ended. For a long moment, no one on the bridge spoke. Then Kira broke the silence, her voice tight with concern. "Captain, the western colonies. That includes New Haven, Aldrich Station, and at least 6 smaller settlements. Combined population is over 4 million people." Ethan's expression hardened into something colder, more serious than before. "And we have less than a week to stop a fleet 3 times larger than anything we've faced before." "Captain," Kira said carefully, "should we request backup? Another Dawnbreaker-class ship, maybe?" Ethan shook his head slowly. "There are only 3 Dawnbreaker-class ships in existence, Kira. One is currently stationed near Earth for defense. The other is 3 weeks away patrolling the southern border. We don't have time to wait." "Then what do we do?" Ethan studied the star map for a long moment, his mind working through different strategies. Finally, he turned to his crew, his voice steady and certain. "We go in alone," he said, "but we don't fight 200 ships head-on. That would be foolish, even for us. We find another way." Meanwhile, deep inside the hidden Voth base within the Carveth asteroid field, a tall, thin alien commander stood in front of his own war council. His name was Krath Ven, leader of the surviving Voth collective forces, and he had spent the last 20 years rebuilding his species' military strength in complete secrecy. "Reports confirm the human warship destroyed at Meridian Station has left the system," one of his officers said. "Scans suggest it's now heading in our general direction." Krath's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. "So they've already discovered our position?" "It appears so, Commander." Krath allowed himself a small, cold smile. "Good. Let them come. A single ship, no matter how powerful, cannot stand against our full fleet. We've prepared for this moment for 20 years. We know exactly what a Dawnbreaker-class vessel is capable of. Sir, another officer spoke up nervously. If their reports are accurate about the ship's shielding and weapon capabilities. I am well aware of their capabilities, Krath interrupted sharply. That's precisely why our fleet's formation has been designed specifically to counter it. We've studied every recorded encounter, every battle report, every weakness that ship class has ever shown. He turned to face his war council fully, his expression filled with confident determination. When that ship arrives, we won't make the same mistake the Threxians made. We won't fire everything at once hoping to overwhelm its shields. We'll spread our formation, strike from multiple angles simultaneously, and exhaust its Aegis core before it can charge a single counterattack. The officers around him nodded, though some still looked uncertain. And if the plan fails? One asked quietly. Kraith's smile faded, replaced by something colder and more dangerous. Then we make sure it never leaves the Karvath cluster alive. Prepare all ships. The human ship will arrive within the next 2 days, based on its current trajectory. Aboard the Dawnbreaker, Ethan sat quietly in his private quarters, studying old historical files from the original Human-Scarn War. He needed to understand exactly how previous Dawnbreaker-class captains had handled situations involving overwhelming enemy numbers. A knock came at his door. Kira entered holding a small data pad. "Captain, I've been running simulations based on the Voth fleet's estimated formation," she said. "I don't like what I'm seeing." "Show me," Ethan said, standing up from his desk. Kira placed the data pad on the table between them, displaying a holographic model of the battle simulation. 200 red dots surrounded a single blue dot in the center, slowly closing in from every direction. "If they truly understand our shielding capabilities," Kira explained, "and if they attack from multiple angles simultaneously instead of concentrating fire, our Aegis core won't be able to absorb energy efficiently. Worse, if they spread wide enough, we won't have a clear target large enough to justify releasing stored energy without risking massive collateral damage across the asteroid field." Ethan studied the simulation carefully, his expression thoughtful. "They've done their research. That's what worries me, Captain. This isn't like Meridian Station. They're not underestimating us. They've prepared specifically to counter our strengths." Ethan crossed his arms, staring at the holographic battle model. For a long moment he said nothing, simply thinking through different possibilities. "Then we don't give them the fight they're expecting," he finally said. Kira looked at him curiously. "What do you mean?" "Every strategy they've prepared is based on us engaging their full fleet directly," Ethan explained. "They're expecting a direct confrontation, testing our defenses against overwhelming numbers. So instead, we don't engage the fleet at all." "Then what's our plan?" Ethan's eyes moved toward a section of the star map showing the asteroid field surrounding the hidden Voth base. "We go after the head, not the body. If Commander Kraith truly leads this fleet from a command ship hidden within that asteroid, then removing him quickly and quietly could throw their entire formation into confusion before the battle even properly begins." Kira's eyes widened slightly. "A precision strike? Against their command ship, hidden deep inside a heavily defended asteroid base?" "Exactly," Ethan said. "Captain, that's incredibly risky. If we're detected before reaching their command ship, we'll be trapped deep inside enemy territory, surrounded on all sides." "I know," Ethan admitted, "but it's a better risk than fighting 200 ships head-on with a strategy they've already prepared to counter." Kira studied his expression carefully, then finally nodded, though clear worry remained on her face. "I'll start preparing stealth systems immediately, Captain. If we're doing this, we'll need every advantage we can get." As Kira left to prepare the ship's systems, Ethan turned back toward the star map, watching the blinking marker representing the Karvath cluster grow slowly closer with each passing hour. 200 ships, he murmured quietly to himself. "Let's see how well you really understand what you're facing." 2 days later, the Dawnbreaker approached the outer edge of the Karvath asteroid field, its systems running at minimal power output to avoid early detection. Inside the bridge, tension filled the air as every crew member focused intensely on their stations. "Stealth systems fully active," Kira reported quietly. "We're reading minimal energy signatures, If their detection systems are as advanced as we fear, we might still get flagged eventually. But this gives us our best possible chance. Ethan nodded, studying the asteroid field ahead. Massive rocks floated silently in the darkness, some large enough to hide entire warships within their shadows. Somewhere deep within this field, Krath's command ship waited, surrounded by 200 hidden warships ready to strike the moment they were needed. "Take us in slowly," Ethan ordered. "Follow the path Kira mapped out. Minimal engine use. We can't afford any unnecessary risks." The Dawnbreaker moved carefully through the asteroid field, weaving silently between massive rocks, its systems humming quietly as it advanced deeper into enemy territory. Every crew member remained tense, watching their instruments carefully for any sign of detection. After nearly 20 minutes of careful navigation, Kira suddenly stiffened at her console. "Captain?" she whispered urgently. "I'm reading a large energy signature just ahead, behind that massive asteroid cluster to our left." Ethan leaned forward, studying the readings. "Is it their command ship?" "I believe so," Kira confirmed. "The signature matches everything we know about advanced Voth command vessels." Ethan's eyes narrowed with determination. "Then we're close. Prepare a targeted strike team. If we can disable their command ship quickly, quietly, and effectively, we might just prevent this entire war before it truly begins." As the Dawnbreaker crept closer to its target, unaware eyes watched carefully from deep within the shadows of the asteroid field. Krath Ven sat quietly in his command chair, a small, knowing smile slowly forming across his face as he studied his own sensor readings. "Sir," an officer said quietly, "the human ship has entered our detection range. Its stealth systems are impressive, but not perfect." Krath's smile widened slightly. "Just as I predicted, they're trying a precision strike against our command position." "Orders, Commander?" Krath leaned back in his chair, his confidence completely restored. "Let them come closer. Let them believe their plan is working perfectly." He turned toward his war council, his voice calm and calculated. "We'll allow them just close enough to commit fully to their attack," he said, "and then we spring the trap we've spent 20 years preparing." Outside, unaware of the danger quietly closing in around them, the U.S. Dawnbreaker continued its careful approach through the darkness of the Karveth asteroid field, moving steadily closer toward a confrontation far more dangerous than anyone aboard could have imagined. The Dawnbreaker moved slowly past the last line of asteroids, closing in on the hidden Voth command ship. On the bridge, every crew member stayed silent, focused completely on their tasks. Ethan watched the sensor screen carefully, counting down the distance to their target. 200 meters to optimal strike range, Kira whispered. Ethan nodded. "Steady, almost there." Then, without warning, every light on the bridge flashed red. "Captain," Kira's voice was sharp with alarm. "New contacts, everywhere. We're surrounded." The main screen filled with warning markers, dozens of them, then hundreds, appearing from behind asteroids, from hidden trenches carved into the rock, from positions the Dawnbreaker's scanners had never detected. In seconds, the ship that had been sneaking quietly through the field found itself completely enclosed by the entire Voth fleet. On the enemy command ship, Krath Ven watched the trap close with quiet satisfaction. "Decloak all ships," he ordered. "Close the formation. Do not let them find an opening." 200 warships revealed themselves at once, their weapons already charged, forming a tight sphere around the Dawnbreaker with no clear path of escape in any direction. A transmission opened on Ethan's screen. Krath's thin, confident face appeared. "Captain Voss," Krath said smoothly, "I must admit your stealth technology is impressive. But did you truly believe a single ship could sneak up on a fleet that has spent 20 years preparing specifically for this moment?" Ethan's expression remained calm, though his mind was already working quickly through the situation. "You knew we were coming." "Of course," Krath said. "We intercepted your scout reports days ago. We allowed you to believe your plan was working, right up until it was too late to change course." Kira glanced at Ethan nervously. "Captain, they're not firing yet. Why?" Ethan studied Krath's expression carefully. "Because he wants something first." Krath's smile widened. "Clever, as expected. Yes, Captain. Before we destroy your ship, I want to understand something. 20 years ago, my people watched carefully as your Dawnbreaker-class vessels ended wars in weeks that should have taken decades. We studied every battle, every strategy, every weakness. And what did you learn? Ethan asked. That your Aegis core, powerful as it is, has one critical flaw, Kraith said. It can only efficiently absorb energy from concentrated attacks. Spread across enough angles, striking simultaneously from every direction, your shield's efficiency drops dramatically. We've positioned 200 ships specifically to exploit that weakness. Ethan's expression didn't change, though inside his mind raced through the tactical situation. Kraith wasn't wrong. A coordinated attack from 200 directions at once truly could overwhelm the Aegis core's absorption capabilities faster than it could handle. You've done your research, Ethan admitted. 20 years of research, Kraith said proudly. And now, we finally have the chance to prove that the legend of the Dawnbreaker class isn't invincible after all. Captain, Kira whispered urgently. Orders? Ethan's mind worked quickly, analyzing every possible option. Direct combat against a coordinated attack from 200 angles was exactly the scenario their shields were weakest against. Retreat was impossible with the fleet's formation completely surrounding them. There seemed to be no way out of this situation through conventional means. But then, Ethan noticed something on his tactical display, a detail Kraith and his officers had likely overlooked in their confidence. Kraith, Ethan said calmly, before this begins, I want to ask you something. Kraith raised an eyebrow, amused. Go ahead, Captain. Enjoy these final moments. Do you know why Earth only builds 3 Dawnbreaker-class ships at a time? Ethan asked. Kraith frowned slightly, confused by the question. I assumed limited resources, or perhaps the technology required is simply too complex to mass produce. Partly true, Ethan said. But there's another reason. Dawnbreaker-class ships were never designed to fight alone against overwhelming numbers through brute strength. We were designed to make our enemies commit fully to a single decisive strategy, and then punish that overcommitment. Kraith's confident smile faltered slightly. What are you talking about? Ethan allowed himself a small, quiet smile. You spent 20 years preparing a perfect trap against a direct confrontation. Every strategy, every formation, every plan, all built around defeating us in open combat. Yes, Kraith said slowly, uncertainty creeping into his voice. That's exactly what we prepared for. That's the problem, Ethan said. We're not here to fight your fleet, Kraith. We came here to disable your command ship specifically. Everything else, our approach, our stealth systems, even allowing ourselves to be detected, was designed to keep your attention focused entirely on us. Kraith's expression shifted from confidence to confusion, then slowly to dawning horror. What do you mean, keep our attention focused? What else is happening? As if answering his question, alarms suddenly erupted across the Voth command ship's own bridge. Commander, one of Kraith's officers shouted. Multiple detonations detected throughout our fleet's support systems. Fuel depots, ammunition storage, communication relays, all compromised. Kraith's eyes widened in shock. That's impossible. Our defenses would have detected any... Small stealth drones, Commander, Ethan interrupted calmly. Deployed quietly 3 days ago, long before the Dawnbreaker ever entered this system. While your fleet focused entirely on detecting one large ship, a dozen tiny drones slipped through your defenses completely unnoticed, planting themselves throughout your support infrastructure. On the enemy command ship, chaos erupted as officers scrambled to understand the sudden failures spreading across their fleet. Fuel systems shut down. Communication relays went dark. Entire sections of the fleet found themselves suddenly unable to coordinate properly. You planned this from the very beginning, Kraith said, his voice filled with disbelief. The stealth approach, allowing yourselves to be detected, even this conversation right now, all of it was simply a distraction. Every good strategy needs a distraction, Ethan said simply. You spent 20 years preparing to defeat a direct confrontation that was never actually going to happen. Kraith's hands clenched into tight fists. Even without full coordination, we still have 200 ships surrounding you. Fire everything now." The Voth fleet, despite its damaged communication systems, began firing wildly at the Dawnbreaker from every direction. But without proper coordination between ships, the attacks came in scattered waves rather than the single, perfectly synchronized strike Kraith had originally planned. "Shields holding at 83%, Kira reported, relief evident in her voice. "Their attack pattern is completely disorganized, Captain. The Aegis Corps is handling it far better than it would have handled a coordinated strike." Ethan nodded, watching the chaotic battle unfold around them. "Divert absorbed energy toward primary weapon systems. Let's make sure this ends quickly, before anyone gets seriously hurt on either side." "Understood," Kira said, quickly adjusting the ship's systems. Within moments, the Dawnbreaker's own weapon systems began charging rapidly, fueled by the energy absorbed from the fleet's scattered, disorganized assault. Ethan watched the charge indicator climb steadily higher, his expression calm despite the chaos surrounding his ship. "Captain," Kira said, "weapon charge at full capacity. Target selection?" Ethan studied the tactical display carefully, his mind working through the situation with careful precision. "Target their primary weapon platforms only. Disable. Don't destroy. We're here to end this conflict, not commit a massacre." "Understood," Kira confirmed, quickly adjusting the targeting parameters. The Dawnbreaker's weapon fired in a series of precise, controlled bursts, striking specifically at the weapon systems of the ships closest to their position, disabling their offensive capabilities without causing catastrophic damage to the vessels themselves. One by one, ships around the Dawnbreaker fell silent, their weapon systems completely disabled, but their crews otherwise unharmed. On the command ship, Krath watched in stunned disbelief as his carefully planned trap collapsed around him, ship after ship losing offensive capability within minutes. "This isn't possible," he muttered, sinking back into his chair. 20 years. 20 years of preparation, and it still wasn't enough. A transmission opened on his own screen, showing Ethan's calm, steady expression once again. "Krath," Ethan said quietly, "your fleet's weapons are disabled. Your support systems are compromised. Continuing this fight will only lead to unnecessary casualties on both sides. I'm offering you the same choice I offered the Threxian commander at Meridian Station." Kraith's expression twisted with a mixture of anger, disbelief, and exhaustion. "And what choice is that?" "Surrender your fleet and stand down the planned attack against Earth's western colonies," Ethan said. "No one else needs to be harmed today." For a long moment, Krath said nothing, staring silently at the screen. Around him, his officers waited anxiously for his decision, watching as reports continued pouring in detailing the extent of their fleet's disabled systems. Finally, Krath's shoulders sank in quiet, bitter defeat. "You've won, Captain Voss. I'll transmit the order to stand down." "Thank you," Ethan said simply. "I truly am sorry it had to come to this." Kraith studied Ethan's expression carefully, a strange mixture of anger and grudging respect crossing his face. 20 years, Captain. 20 years spent preparing for this exact moment, and you defeated us with a handful of tiny drones and a single, well-planned distraction. Preparation matters, Ethan said quietly. But so does understanding your enemy's true intentions before committing fully to a single strategy. You prepared perfectly for a fight we were never planning to have. The transmission ended as Krath began issuing orders to stand down his fleet's remaining systems, officially ending the immediate threat to Earth's western colonies. Several hours later, as the last of the Voth fleet powered down completely, Ethan stood quietly on the Dawnbreaker's bridge, watching the aftermath of the battle unfold on his screen. Kira approached him, her expression a mixture of relief and lingering exhaustion. "Captain," she said, "High Command is requesting a full report. They're calling this one of the most significant strategic victories in recent history." Ethan nodded slowly, though his expression remained thoughtful, rather than triumphant. "It's not really a victory worth celebrating, Kira. It's simply a war that didn't need to happen, avoided just in time." Kira studied his expression carefully. "Do you think this changes anything? Will other species finally understand not to underestimate Earth?" Ethan considered the question for a long moment before answering. "Some will learn from this, others won't. no matter how many demonstrations we provide. That's simply the nature of pride and ambition across every species in this galaxy, including our own. Then what was the point of all this? Kira asked quietly. Ethan turned to face her fully, his expression calm but firm. The point is simple, Kira. Earth doesn't seek conflict. We don't want to conquer, or dominate, or prove our strength through unnecessary violence. But we will always be ready to defend ourselves, and those under our protection, against anyone foolish enough to test that resolve. He looked back toward the main screen, watching as the disabled Voth fleet slowly began preparing for a peaceful withdrawal from the region. They expected an easy war, Ethan said quietly. Instead, they learned the same lesson every enemy before them eventually learns. And what lesson is that, Captain? Kira asked. Ethan's eyes remained fixed on the screen, his voice steady and certain. That the galaxy's most dangerous warship was never truly about firepower, or shields, or overwhelming force, he said. It was always about making sure Earth never has to fight the same war twice. As the Dawnbreaker slowly turned to set course back toward home, leaving behind a fleet that had once believed itself unstoppable, word of the battle quietly began spreading across neighboring systems. Stories of a single ship, appearing exactly when needed, ending conflicts before they could truly begin. And across the galaxy, one simple message continued to spread among those wise enough to listen carefully. Never test Earth twice.